Nick, why is breath the compound interest of health?
That's a great question. So there's many reasons, and I should preface it with I stole that from James Clear because he said habits are the compound interest of self-help, I think. And I thought, well, that's what breathing is of our health, right? It's the compound interest because one little change in your breath can compound into basically a completely different life. And what I mean by that is learning to breathe through your nose, for example. If you start with breathing through your nose and you have more energy, well, that more energy might then compound into you walking more. And then walking more might compound into you sleeping a little bit better. And then sleeping a little bit better might compound into eating a slightly better breakfast because you feel better in the morning. You have more willpower to override your normal tendencies. And where that might snowball is unknowable, right? It'll be unique to each person, to their unique personality. But what matters is that initial nudge, right? That initial nudge with, let's just say, just nasal breathing that caused that compounding to begin. And because the breath is associated with every organ in the body, with our brain, with our nervous system, with everything, it kind of gives this perfect kicking off point for compounding into anything you want. So you might find that slow breathing, improves your ability to, control yourself in really emotionally trying situations. And so you find yourself better able to react and hope, not respond angrily and actually take a minute to think about what you're going to say and not hurt someone's feelings and do something you're going to regret. And then that might compound into, you being more interested in these things and maybe starting to read different types of books and start meditation or, it can snowball into so many different directions. And so I call it the compound interest of health because it's basically the only tool that can be applied anywhere, anytime that can trigger a growth process that is unknowable, the limit of which is unknowable. And I speak from a personal journey of if someone, my friends from high school or people even knew me 5 or 10 years ago wouldn't believe how much different I am with the person I've become. And it all started with the breath. It's not just the breath, right? You can't ignore the rest of life and say, oh, I don't ever have to eat healthy again, or I don't have to do anything. It's that the breath gives you the energy to focus on all those other things. And then what it reveals, though, is what is important to you, because it's helping you tune into you, learn about your body, and become the person you want to become, not what other people are telling you to become. And so what it compounds into is unknowable. And what's amazing about to see who you become and the types of things you're really into and to have those revealed to you, it's unbelievable.
Can you share an example of how that happened for you?
Slow breathing in particular, breathing slowly, doing that daily helped me tremendously with my emotional regulation and not going crazy when things happen, right? And that helped guide me. And that kind of got me interested in what's this let me dive deeper into meditation. I had done meditation beforehand, but I never got that kind of benefit. And then so I started exploring other things loving kindness meditation. And to me, that used to sound ridiculous. I'm going to fake that I love people and I'm going to send them love and it's going to help. And I was like, that's so woo-woo. That's so ridiculous. But, with that slow breath, retraining my nervous system, I started to understand the power of that, why it's been around for millennia. And it actually transformed my entire life to being much more loving and caring. And especially toward my wife and my daughter, just having an extraordinary more amount of patience and and not forced, it happened naturally through these practices. I don't get upset because I just have so much love for her now. And it's it's honestly unbelievable. So for me, going from a pretty stressed out, anxious person to someone who now people probably, I probably look ridiculous from the outside because I have so much patience and I just am so accepting of people and love everyone I meet. And it's all due to these practices. Perhaps that's not what most people want to hear because that's not how our society is structured, right? To practice love all the time. But it really has been life-changing for me. like the amount of joy and pleasure that's brought. And I guess another one I'll mention is humor. Like I've always, like my family, we're all kind of joke around and kid and stuff, but like these practices have just allowed me to laugh so much. Like I'm just always like, I guess maybe it's a little bit of impermanence you learn with breathing, like the breath cycle serving as like, life and death, like things come and go, things change, and kind of seeing that bigger picture and just being able to like have my nervous system in a place where I find humor in things that when I say something stupid or silly and I look ridiculous, rather than like old Nick would have not slept, like all I would think about, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. Now I literally just like laugh at myself and I'm like, I am ridiculous. That's hilarious. I can't believe I said that to the librarian. She must have thought I was a complete idiot, but that's hilarious. And then I completely forget about it until I'm telling you right now. That's a true story. So laughter and humor, a big one, compounding.
That's amazing. Those are big ones. And God, I mean, who couldn't use a little more laughter, humor, patience, higher vibration emotions? Like that's I think it's an apt analogy you picked, compounding interest, because those are huge. Those are definitely life-changing things. And if it stemmed from this little tiny breath, that's definitely compounding interest. When I heard you say that analogy, it really struck me, and I thought about it for a little while. I'm like, man, he's right, because you think he's breathing nonstop all day, right? So if you start to make changes in your breath, that is, and it makes sense that it came from, James Clear has a similar analogy, because habits, some of his work is just profound, because it's like you just make one little change and then it stacks upon itself over and over. And what's for breath would be an ultimate way to do that for health. It's not like this big gym session that's going to be an hour long that you have to get prepared for and change and drive to and, fuel before and after. It's in an instant, you're taking your next breath now, and then again a few seconds later. So it really stuck with me. So I'm like, wow, yeah, if I make changes there, like you said, slowing down and getting more calmer, if I do that, teaching my body that thousands of times a day, if I start to make those changes in my breath. So very cool to hear about how it, spread into your life. And yeah, man, like I said, I love it. The joy, the laughter, I certainly want more of that too. There's more room for that in my life. And what a cool road to take to get there.
Appreciate it, Josh. And I'll mention quickly that when I wrote that, whenever it was, it might have been 3 or 4 years ago, I was thinking with the every breath. So like that's what it was at first for me, was that like, oh, if I change one breath 20,000 times a day, like it's compounding. Every breath gets a little bit better. Like my nervous system gets a little bit better, and it's 20,000, 25,000 times a day. But what and so that's like an example of compounding there. Is like my thought of what that means has grown as I've changed as a human from these practices. But yeah, you can definitely take it in like a more literal, like you will improve, every breath gets better on itself. And each time you go into relaxation breathing, it will get a little bit deeper, and you'll teach your body, and it'll compound in that more physiological sense too. So I love that perspective as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Josh.